Qualcomm, they've been on a multi-year revenue diversification plan. For the past year plus, they've talked a lot about how they've grown in the automotive market, that gigantic $50 billion backlog, and also getting into the PC market where, quite frankly, they have redefined the segment. I don't use those words loosely, but they came out with their very high performance, low battery life designs. Both AMD and Intel did respond with offerings of their own. But this Snapdragon Summit, really the lead here was the new mobile core, the new Snapdragon 8 Elite, which is based on a second generation Orion core. And Orion 1 is inside of the PC, but they made some pretty incredible modifications. And although we didn't do any of the testing, they did let people test, on some basic synthetic benchmarks. And for the first time in many, many years, it surpasses Apple on a few key benchmarks. It meets them on single-threaded benchmarks, but pretty much blows them away on anything that's multi-threaded. The GPU and the NPU aren't as clear, but with phones going on sale, you can benchmark them in the next month. That was the big news there. I think by the way, puts them in a very good position. They already dominate premium Android, but there is a potential, particularly outside of Western countries, where they can potentially move a few points of market share related to Apple. I'm also, piqued everybody's interest is, would these next generation Orion cores and design make their way into the next generation PC? The next big announcement was around automotive, where we saw, imagine that, the new Orion cores going into not only the cockpit solutions, but the ADAS solutions. We had a great sit down with Nakul, who runs that business, among others. But it's too early to see necessarily how this does in comparison from, let's say, what NVIDIA is doing or what Intel is doing. But what I can say is that monster backlog they have, which is up to $50 billion, is proof positive that their strategy is working. And the way that I would characterize their strategy is meeting customers where they are. If they want an integrated solution, top to bottom, hardware, software, and services, they can offer that. If they only want to take bits and pieces of the solution and leverage their own software, they can do that too. It is so funny, just remembering back even a few years ago, before Qualcomm had even announced that it was doing ADAS, they invited me to do a ride in a car that was, driven by Snapdragon processors. And then here we are, I think roughly 4 years later, with this monster backlog that really has three parts to it. You have the communications, right, which has been the 3G, 4G, 5G communications, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. You have the cockpit, essentially everything you see and all the entertainment services that go along with that. And then finally, ADAS and full self-driving. We haven't necessarily seen the full self-driving in a car yet, but I am sure we will, as Qualcomm has put together what I believe is a scalable solution to get in that market. The other thing that we don't necessarily think of that could come out of this group are things like robots, and those companies who aren't doing their own chips, like the folks over at Tesla, robots, two-wheel devices like motorcycles, and even think industrial. So hoping to get a lot more information financially from automotive, PC, and the mobile market coming into Qualcomm's Financial Analyst Day, which is next month.
Yeah, there was a lot to unpack. This wasn't unpacked, but Qualcomm did share quite a bit, and it kind of all started off with a bit of a storytelling exercise by CEO Cristiano Amon. We had him on our show, and we will publish that probably in the next few days. But it really started off with him talking about what AI in the future looks like, which was a bit unique because this is a company. Remember, a couple of years ago, it was like banging on 5G, it was banging on SoC advancements, features, images, photos. I mean, and this was an all AI show. I don't know how much you remember the kind of like go back 2 or 3 years and just how different the content has become. He was talking about agents. He was talking about on device. He was talking about LLMs running locally. And that was sort of the meat and potatoes. Is you can sort of sense that the industry, the hardware industry is becoming cognizant of the narrative and the impact that AI is going to have and how they're going to need to position themselves to stay differentiated. And so that was very evident. And then, of course, the company did focus on how Orion is going to become, sort of platform distributed. So whether you're going from phone to PC to automotive, it is going to be building continuity. And this really aligns to that diversification story that the company's been telling over the last couple of years. You and I said for a long time, too much risk in handsets, too much risk in Apple. It's really done a good job of being able to offload those concerns. Of course, there's some new risk related to its ongoing dispute with ARM, and we'll hit on that a little bit later. But this Orion platform that it is building and this elite sort of everything we do, there's an elite platform that's got continuity across the different, device subsets. I think it really shows, it goes to show that Qualcomm has created efficiency. And of course, they're doing so by continuing to grow, continuing to develop, and being cognizant of how they're spending on R&D. And that's another area that the company's done pretty well. So this all really became evident here at the event. Pat, I think as we spent some time there, and as we know, there are some question marks, great technology, but we are in a particular era of the market where AI PCs, how good are they doing and are they growing? Our intelligence team will actually be launching some forecast data on this over the next couple of weeks. Handsets, we've seen the major pullbacks in iPhone 16, and while that doesn't directly impact Qualcomm that much as their content's fading out of the Apple ecosystem, the question mark about what is driving people to buy handsets and how quickly will this AI cycle really take place is another question mark. But I think when it comes to, automotive, and you hit this and you kind of really went into detail, they've done just a remarkable job of winning basically all the designs across every OEM and doing so, as you said, in sort of a piece part or full system implementation. And I love that in our conversation with Nicole DeGaulle, the group GM of that business and several others within Qualcomm, he really said they're focused on business that's out there to be had today. So, there's Robotaxi Day, which is great and that's fun. And then there's the cars that people are going to buy in the next 12, 24 months. There's the implementation of ADAS, infotainment, telematics, and Qualcomm seems to be there, and the revenue is ramping really quickly. Pat, I will end on saying there is a weird missing element of 5G. I don't know if this is sort of just because AI is the thing, because it's a distraction, because 5G was kind of never amounted to what it was expected of it. But it is kind of fascinating that this was the all about 5G thing for about 5 years. And now as we enter this AI era, I don't think I heard it one time in 3 days on stage. And that was really, really interesting to me.
Yeah, it certainly remains to be a huge part of their business. And even though Apple, the thesis, Apple's been going away for 7 years, ever since Apple bought Intel's 5G assets. Give a company in the top 5 valuation enough time, they're going to figure that out. And by the way, even if Qualcomm over time loses the digital part, good luck getting rid of the RF part. So, anyways, let's move forward. Apple's about 25% of global smartphones, and Qualcomm still has access to that other 75%.